This is Arizona Forum, a weekly conversation focusing on the issues affecting the Grand Canyon State. Now your host, State Representative Jay Lauren.
Once again, good evening. Thank you so much for letting us be part of your evening wherever you're listening to us from the state of Arizona on the Skyview Network. With us this section of the show is the Southwest Coordinator for Judicial Watch, and we are so glad to welcome Mark Spencer. Good evening, Mark.
Jay, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm hanging in there, just trying to beat the heat like everybody else.
Isn't that what we're all doing? I was with the Phoenix mayor at an event last night down at the Phoenix Sheraton. I mentioned to him that I would be visiting with you tonight, and one of the subjects we would be discussing is open borders, is sanctuary cities. And he said, and I almost quote, he looked at me quizzically and said, "What is a sanctuary city?" I said, "Mayor Stanton, come on." I have also heard that they have now said that they are not a sanctuary city. What's the story?
Well, as of yet, they're not. They haven't pulled a trigger on their immigration policy revision for the Phoenix Police Department. But I'm telling you, it's on the way. What they have taken out and what they have added is incredibly alarming, and is taking Phoenix, the Phoenix police policy, back to 2004 to the old sanctuary city policy of Harold Hurd. It's alarming. It was problematic back then. It's going to be just as problematic now. Mom always used to say, Jay, if it isn't broken, why are we fixing it? And here's this huge policy revision of an immigration policy that was not causing any problems whatsoever. And I think it's clearly driven by a political agenda.
What changes are they making? How are they reverting back to a former policy with regard to illegal immigration?
Well, in 2008, Jay, we changed the policy. Prior to that, in 2004, the policy was sanctuary, in that it mandated that an illegal alien commit another crime, cause more damage, and create another victim first before a patrol officer or an officer could contact ICE. In other words, any contact with our federal immigration partners was funneled and bottlenecked through one individual on the police department. That's what was called the Violent Crimes Bureau sergeant. So it was incredibly restrictive. No other restrictions were placed on any other federal partners. So here we operated under this sanctuary city policy implemented in 2004. The result of that, we had at least 6 Phoenix police officers murdered by illegal aliens, at least 7 seriously injured. In 2006, 2007, Jay, out of every 10 homicide victims in the city of Phoenix, 6 were Hispanic. Out of 6 Hispanic homicide victims, 3 were connected to illegal immigration. It was a problem. It was a real problem. I mean, it was literally killing our cops and killing our community partners. We vehemently protested that at the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association because it was dangerous for our members. It was dangerous for our community. Thus, we got the policy changed in 2008. Here was the change. Now an officer, when he or she has reasonable suspicion to believe a person is in the country illegally and that person is connected to a crime, that officer can pick up the phone at their discretion and call ICE. They can call the FBI, they can call ATF, they can call Secret Service, they can call the Postal Inspector, they can call U.S. Marshals, they can call DEA, and now with the 2008 policy revision, they could call ICE also. The new policy revision put out several weeks ago is going to take all that discretion away. We're back to the sanctuary city policy. It's very alarming. It does basically 5 things, Jay. It disallows a discretionary phone call to ICE. You got to funnel everything through a single individual. That is restrictive, and that's in violation of what Senate Bill 1070 called for. It even goes so far, Jay, as it prohibits consensual contact between a police officer and a person on the street. A police officer has rights just like everybody else, Jay. A police officer can talk to anybody about anything. I can talk to you about how much you weigh. I can talk to you about lemon meringue pie. I can talk to you about how hot it is. But under this new policy revision, police officers will be forbidden to discuss the topic of illegal immigration. They are forbidden from asking immigration questions. It even goes so far, Jay, this revision, it removes a term recognized at the federal level, the state level, and the courts. Here's the term. Now, this might be offensive to you, Jay, but it's not meant to be. Illegal alien. That's been stricken from the Phoenix Police Department. Now
that's not offensive to me, Mark.
Now it's just a person unlawfully present. So
I have no problem with the term illegal alien.
Well,
I have no problem.
Nor should you. Neither do the courts. So we're disallowing discretionary contact with ICE. We're prohibiting consensual contact. We're removing court-recognized terms. We are also, under this new policy revision, we are denying officers the ability to document contacts with illegal aliens.
Now this is the city of Phoenix. This is their new plan.
This is their new plan revision. In other words, Jay, if I don't document a contact or a problem, that problem must not exist. So just keep officers from documenting and we'll eliminate the problem. But that's just not true. We're trying to cover up that problem. And lastly, Jay, this is where it gets into the taxpayer's wallet. Officers under this new policy revision will be mandated to book illegal aliens who commit crimes instead of taking them directly to ICE for deportation. I'll give you an example. An officer arrests an illegal alien for misdemeanor trespassing. If I take him to jail, it's going to cost the city $200 to $300 to book him and officer manpower. Why spend that money when I can take him to ICE for free and deport him for nothing? Now we're going to mandate all criminal illegals be booked into MCSO. Who's the sheriff down there now? Oh, yeah.
And we have a sheriff who is making it so much easier for illegal immigrants to exist illegally.
Well, and now, Jay, you're being harsh on Sheriff Penzone because they're not illegal immigrants; they're guests. According to his terminology, they're guests. So we're stripping
them guests.
So we're stripping illegal aliens from the policy, and we'll call them guests. So if this isn't a sanctuary city policy, then I don't know what it is, and it's going to be dangerous, and it'll be causing a lot of problems.
Of course it is, and many of us who were fans and are still fans of Sheriff Joe Arpaio miss the way he dealt with illegal immigrants. He had the right idea, and he was operating under federal guidelines. Now, are any other cities? Tucson is another sanctuary city. How will they respond? Do you have any idea what their response is?
Well, I won't know about Tucson, but I know South Tucson is considered a sanctuary city policy, and that is very problematic and burdensome for our partners in the Border Patrol because here they work hard at the front lines in maintaining the border, and so they're facing forward towards the border. If anyone does get by, it's like they've been stripped of any support, a support role from local police and law enforcement agencies to help secure what's getting through. So it's very discouraging. Lawlessness leads to more lawlessness. You can rename it, you can cover it up, but it's just going to cause more problems. When we allowed officers, Jay, the discretionary ability just to pick up the phone and call ICE when they wanted to, within 6 months, we saw homicides fall 24% in the city of Phoenix. Within 6 months, we saw stolen vehicles drop by 26% in this city of Phoenix. I had one homicide investigator whose clearance rate went from 5% to 80%, just by the fact that the deterrence produced by the ability for officers to support their federal partners on the immigration lines made all the difference.
What can Judicial Watch, what are you doing, what can you do?
Well, as of now, this is just a policy revision, so there hasn't been a trigger pulled. But if or when, and I have a funny feeling by the 10th of next month, that policy will be put into place. I think that will be in violation of ARS 11-1051, which is Senate Bill 1070 in the Arizona revised statutes. You took Senate Bill 1070, it becomes law. That law is now ARS 11-1051. What ARS 11-1051 does, at least in two categories, is one, it prohibits policies from municipalities or counties. It prohibits policies from restricting interaction or partnerships with their policing agencies with federal immigration partners. One, so it prohibits restrictive policies. Two, if there is a restrictive policy in place, ARS 11-1051 allows for a citizen to sue. So that's where Judicial Watch's role will come into play if it gets to that point.
Our guest is Mark Spencer, who is the Southwest Coordinator for Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch is regularly in the news, and we'll talk about some of their other lawsuits straight ahead. Our guest is Mark Spencer, the Southwest Coordinator for Judicial Watch. We see Judicial Watch on television quite a bit, Mark. You guys are in the every battle, every fight that's going on. Judicial Watch is part of it. There's a Judicial Watch weekly update that I receive. You are suing Veterans Affairs for violating protesters' constitutional rights. What's that all about?
Let me give you some context on that. Our plaintiff in this case is a gentleman by the name of Robert Rosebrock. Mr. Rosebrock, he's 75 years old. He's a Vietnam War veteran. He protests on a regular basis in the Los Angeles area at a VA facility known as the Great Lawn Gate. It's a VA facility. And this shows you, he was arrested back in over a year ago, Jay, June the 12th, and then again on June the 19th, for violating a VA statute which does not allow photographs to be taken for commercial purposes. He was arrested for that and for hanging some napkin-sized American flags on the gate of this facility. Now, what's he protesting? Here's the issue. The facility out there was donated way back in 1888 as a home for needy veterans. Well, what has happened to the property is it seems to have been utilized for everything but that. UCLA uses it for a ballpark. It's an athletic field for private prep schools. And lastly, it's a dog park. He probably correctly thinks that veterans have a higher priority than these, or at least equal priorities. It's not being utilized for those purposes. So he exercises a First Amendment right in protest and was arrested for photographing and hanging these flags. It went to court. The court found him not guilty for violating the federal law. And the judge ruled that you can't prosecute a person for taking photographs. That's the criminal side of it, Jay. Now that has concluded at the beginning of the year, now we're waiting in. Judicial Watch is waiting in again on the litigation side as far as asking the court, leave Mr. Rosebrock alone. It's a bad law, and he needs to be left alone.
Isn't there another example where the VA has been allowing use of a veterans facility in Los Angeles to non-veterans? Isn't there
I think we might be talking about the same situation here. The specific one that we're looking at, though, is we're asking the court to prevent the state and or the VA from further violations of Mr. Rosebrock's constitutional rights. One, so we're asking the court to enjoin any further violation. We're also asking that court to declare this, we'll just call it a picture law, as being invalid. So we have it's two issues there. A, leave them alone, and B, Judge, you need to say this is a bad law. This shouldn't be happening again. So that's specifically our involvement in the VA in that situation. It's what's interesting too is the attorney that we partnered with is a gentleman by the name of Robert Sticht. He lives over in California, but his hometown is Tucson, so he's like a Tucson guy. I had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago. He's a great guy. So we partnered with him on the criminal end of this, and then are proceeding further down the line on the civil end of this, as far as asking the court leave our client alone and declare the law bad.
All right. The EPA has been using social media for alleged propaganda. Judicial Watch wants to end that use of social media for that which is propaganda. Are you familiar with that?
Well, we can be using, and it's almost, I'm not an attorney, but I play one on TV. It almost smacks of a Hatch Act type of violation. In other words, we can't use government property or government facilities or a government computer system to promote a political agenda. Police officers in Phoenix can't go out and work for certain candidates at the city council. You can't use a city position or a city asset to do that. You just can't do that. So when they're misused in that way, yes, we have certainly entered into the litigative arena to say this needs to stop, cease and desist.
Are you familiar with Governor Christie's efforts to extort $300 million from an insurance company for an addiction program, which is part of a deal he had with a former chief of staff? Is that something where Judicial Watch is involved?
Yes, and I think not only are the specifics of that important, but what is just as important, I think, in a broader perspective on that, Jay, and what really makes Judicial Watch just a wonderful team to be a part of. When we say we're nonpartisan, we mean that. We don't work for the Republican Party. We don't work for the Democratic Party. We certainly promote conservative principles. But both sides of the aisle need to adhere to the rule of law. Both sides of the aisle need to steer clear of corruption and improper or unlawful practices. We did it with the former governor of Virginia, and we will engage Governor Christie too when he goes south of the line for what would be considered illegal or inappropriate actions.
Mark, what are some of the other big things that on which Judicial Watch is working right now?
We are engaged with in obtaining information and through FOIA and litigation, the involvement of Rice unmasking individuals through classified information. Even what strikes closer to home for us, Jay, here in Arizona, and I don't say this with pride. I guess I say it more with alarm. Some major issues that have come up are from Arizona. Let me go through this. The tarmac meeting between Lynch and Clinton. That tarmac was in Phoenix. We're litigating over that contact and the notes and any communications with that. The VA scandal, as far as the mistreatment and abuse of veterans, started in Phoenix. Fast and Furious started in Phoenix. We're still engaged in litigation and trying to track down weapons, and the failure to report weapons that have been seized on this side of the border that Mr. Ice's committee, they've been failed to recognize. And then even as far as illegal immigration, ground zero seems to be consistently here in Phoenix. So our litigation extends to whether it be Obamacare or Solyndra, Clinton. The Benghazi issue never would have made it to the level that it had if Judicial Watch hadn't engaged in court to get the documentation and sued for it.
Of course, Mark, we're looking forward now to Susan Rice, her appearance before committees in the House of Representatives who will ask her about the unmasking, even though your suit is going on.
Absolutely. That is correct. And we're still engaged with the IRS also. So let's not forget that.
And we're out of time. Mark Spencer, I thank you for the time you spent with us, and everyone else will look forward to seeing you next week
Jay, you're
on
a good
Arizona
friend.
Forum.
Take
Good
care.
night, Mark.
Bye-bye.